Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
I'm here to save the day. I'm here to save the day.
Soon I will be invincible. Because comics. Welcome to Because Comics. This is episode 9. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host, the kinetic Mike Christensen.
Booyakasha.
I love that that's your go-to for kinetic.
I'm not gonna lie, it's possible I've just been waiting to use the word booyakasha
Just
all
waiting
day
for the right one.
and just waiting for the moment when it's appropriate to do. It's possible.
One of these things is going to make sense for Booyakasha.
It's possible I've wanted to say it for 2 weeks ever since we recorded the last episode.
Yeah. So you're like, this is the right time.
Booyakasha!
Yes. Well, you've finally gotten off, and we're glad to have you here, Kinetic Mike.
Glad to be here.
That's your new superhero name.
Kinetic Mike?
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those names that's sort of problematic as far as secret identities go.
That's true. You know, someone might make the connection in your small town of Oregon is where Kinetic Mike is from, right?
Yeah, of course. Here's the thing. Why don't people ever call themselves, like, Spider Dave? Mm-hmm. Then you're looking for people named Dave.
That's true.
Not Peter.
That's right. If
Like,
you just
here's
called him spell Spider Dave instead of Spider-Man, I mean, people are going to look for men because he's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But they would just narrow it down to just Dave's. You're
There
right.
would be, like, some guy named Dave in Queens who's just like, I promise.
I swear.
I'm not Spider-Man.
Look, I'm just very fit. I know I used to work in Cirque du Soleil, guys, but
I'm
I
not
promise
Spider
I'm not
Dave.
Spider Dave.
I promise. Look, why doesn't anyone ever ask Jack Nicholson if he's Iron Jack? No one ever does that.
Like, guys, what about this dude across the street? I swear he's shooting webs out his window constantly, and that lady, his aunt, is just not the nicest lady. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah, she has been dead more than once. Why aren't you guys knocking on his door?
She is a zombie. Why is nobody asking these questions?
So, what's Venom like, Spider Dave? Come on, guys!
What would his name be? What would it be? Venom Flash?
What if Venom Eddie?
Venom Eddie?
Venom Eddie sounds like... And that's a tangent from our tangent of our tangent.
Yeah.
Venom Eddie sounds like the gangster in like an 80s like crime kid movie or something like The Warriors. Like, it's Venom Eddie.
It's Venom Eddie.
Like the bad guy in like Neverending Story 3 might be Venom Eddie.
Of course it would be. Oh man. Well, completely off tangent. So pull list this week, Mike. I guess I'll roll into it. My pull this week, actually, this is a special kind of episode we're doing here for our pull list.
That's true.
We're actually going a little bit back in time. Lately, we've been in our last, 2 weeks ago, and then previously in our previous episodes, we've talked about current comics on our pull list.
As we tend to do.
Yeah, which is great, but we wanted to take this specific episode to talk about some pulls from previous years ago that might have gone unseen, or we'd really like to talk about because they're really, really fun.
Think of it as Throwback Thursday.
Throwback.
Just what did we used to read like 4 or 5 years ago?
Exactly. So for my pull for this throwback episode is actually Joe the Barbarian. Mm-hmm. So Joe the Barbarian was written by Grant Morrison and drawn by Sean Murphy. So Sean Murphy right now, I've done a call out to him actually, I think in our first episode with The Wake.
Right.
He drew that with for that comic series. And obviously, he does a fantastic job here with Joe the Barbarian, and you might, just hearing the name, think that this is a story about, a Conan offshoot, and a guy going around with a giant sword or axe, hacking up all kinds of business. But Joe the Barbarian is actually the story about a young kid, and a kid who had recently lost his father.
A present-day kid.
A
kid in our world.
Kid, yes, not a barbarian kid, but a present-day kid in our world who had recently lost his father. And our story kicks off with him kind of just going to school. He's in, I believe, in high school or middle school, somewhere around the age of like 12 or 13.
Right.
And he goes there, he gets picked on by bullies. And where our comic really kicks off is we find out that our character, Joe, has diabetes. So he comes back home, and during the day, these bullies kind of take some sweets and candy from him, candy that he needs for his condition.
Right.
And he gets home to his house. He climbs all, he's the only one home. His mom's, a single mom now because his father's passed away. And she's at work, so he's home by himself. He goes all the way back upstairs to the top of his room, which is in the attic of the home. Mm-hmm. And where our comic kicks off is because he doesn't get the insulin or the sugar that he needed, he starts to hallucinate. and he starts to hallucinate not just like weird stuff, but almost Alice in Wonderland. All the toys in his room, his pet rat, everything just starts to take on a life of its own, like a cartoon, and he's now suddenly in this almost fantasy world where he's like talking to like Optimus Prime, and they don't shy away from this with the art.
No,
like,
yeah.
This is very much like, oh, that is Optimus Prime, and he's in Batman. Batman is very much standing there, but they're in like toy form, like they're not just their comic forms. They're actually, you know, Batman has joints and
the
and plastic
articulated
pieces.
joints, exactly.
But
But he's also not the size of a toy. Joe is, in this vision, the size of...
their size,
Their
basically.
size, yeah.
And basically the whole comic series is about kind of Joe coming to terms with death, but of course Grant Morrison does that in his own kind of crazy, colorful ways, and with the metaphors of him working with these toys against the villain, you know, a little bit on the nose. I think it's Death, or like King Death is like the villain.
Right.
And it's just his journey, really just this epic tale of him getting from the attic all the way down to the kitchen where there's sweets where he'll be fine. And it's just, you know, they keep calling him like the boy who's dying, or the dying boy. So like there's a lot of these like metaphors or comments about death, and it's just a really fun, vibrant, the art, like I said, is really cool, and just a really interesting story, and a very like kind of contained, fantastical tale, Alice in Wonder style, in this house with Joe.
Yeah.
So I recommend it. It's really fun, really out there, and anyone who likes Grant Morrison will get a kick out of it.
It's also a great entry point for Grant Morrison.
Oh, yeah.
Grant
it is.
Morrison's a challenging read, by and large.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a hard time with a lot of his works in the past. Joe the Barbarian is one of the more straightforward, but it's not, you know, watered down
Oh, no,
by
not
any
at all.
means. It's just it's beautiful. I really love Joe the Barbarian as well. So.
Yeah. So definitely recommend it, and that's my kind of throwback pull for Mike. What is yours?
Mine is actually Dungeons and Dragons, a comic from IDW. Now, there are Dungeons and Dragons on the stands, or comics on the stands now, but this was specifically a comic by John Rogers, who actually ran the show Leverage for
Okay.
TNT, and he's working on shows like the upcoming Librarians series. He's a Hollywood writer, and the artist is Andrea Di Vito. And what makes the comic interesting is that it takes a lot of the conventions that we know as fans of fantasy, as fans of, you know, for you and I, Dungeons and Dragons, but even
Yeah.
if you're just Lord of the Rings, you've got characters that seem very familiar: human warrior, elf ranger, halfling rogue, you know, dwarf cleric, etc. And it has a fun, character-centric focus on them.
It's cool.
And it's very self-aware. We talked about meta in the last episode with Jimmy Olsen. It's not that degree of meta,
Okay.
but there certainly is like an awareness of the conventions of the story, and, you know, we've seen elves and dwarves bicker before. Dwarves and elves bickering on their own is no longer interesting if they're just clashing because elves and dwarves don't get along.
Because we
Yeah.
don't like each other. Like, we
But
get it.
these two don't get along because they're friends. They're friends and they bicker. That's the way it is.
Okay.
So, like, the elf gives the dwarf a hard time because anytime they come against something that's impressive, he calls it dwarven work. And the elf's like, not everything can be dwarven work. Not everything that's dwarven work is impressive. You do that all the time. This kitchen knife, sturdy, formidable,
Must be
dwarven
dwarven
work. Like, must be dwarven work. Like, and, you know, they play with the rogue, who, for those of you out there who've played D&D, you might know that the rogue tends to get tends to go rogue, tends to be a little bit
Surprising.
of the loose cannon. This one is no different. She's, her name, I think, is Bree, and the opening page, they're fighting these child zombies in a burning inn, and her opening line is, well, on the bright side, they're orphan zombies, so nobody's going to miss them.
Oh, man.
And that makes it sound like it's a much darker or more cynical book than it actually is, because it is really a well-done series as far as, like, the friendship, the camaraderie. You know, we saw Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess, about a month ago?
Yeah.
Or 3-4 weeks ago now. And that's another movie where you have this gang of what should, on paper, be incredibly unlikable characters.
Oh, yeah. They're all criminals. They're all terrible.
It's true, but when you put them together, there's this fun alchemy. They really bounce off each other in interesting ways. The D&D comic, specifically this one from 2009, 2010, thereabouts, only ran for about 15 issues, but did a really great job of that as well. I definitely suggest, again, much like Rat Queens, you don't have to be a fan of the genre or the conventions.
Just the characters are
Yeah.
fun, it sounds like.
If you do play D&D, every adventure in the comic is broken down as a playable adventure in the back.
Really?
Yeah. of the back of the trade and the
Pretty cool.
comics.
That's a nice
Yeah.
tie-in that they had there.
I just think it's a great way to do it, and I think it makes perfect sense for a D&D
It's like, if
comic.
you like this kind of storytelling and fun stuff, why
you
not
can
try
you
out
can
the game?
throw this at your players.
That's awesome. And so, wait, so each comic you're saying is actually its own, like, mini adventure, basically? Each trade?
I don't know if every trade, exactly, every trade has adventures in the back of them.
Okay.
Yeah, every comic I think would as well. I don't know. I don't remember if every issue had a fight that was in the back, but most of them.
That's awesome. And it ran about 15 issues, you said?
I think so. Yeah, 15, 16, right around there.
Okay, awesome. And,
Yeah.
and it's just called D&D the comic.
Dungeons and Dragons. Look up Dungeons and Dragons John Rogers. It'll come up immediately.
Awesome. All right. That's a great pull.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess now we'll be moving on to our main segment. So, Mike, let's kick things off.
Howard the Duck #1. Howard the Barbarian. Yeah, I don't think I told you the name of that episode, the name of that issue, when you said you were doing Joe the Barbarian.
No, I didn't know that.
But I knew it would work exceptionally well. Part of the reason...
I think Joe and Howard the Duck are a little bit different, though.
Very different. Part of the reason I wanted to do this story... you and I played D&D, as I just discussed a moment ago. The new edition, the Player's Handbook, just launched last week. That's why, specifically, I wanted to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I thought it was really funny that Joe the Barbarian tangentially ties in Howard the Barbarian even more so. There's
of course.
Kind of. There's also, for Guardians of the Galaxy, for those who haven't seen it, if you look very closely in the Collector's, in the scene with the Collector, Benicio del Toro's character, over his shoulder in one of the boxes, there is a reference to Howard the Duck. He's in one of the boxes.
Yeah.
So if you have to watch the movie very carefully to see it, but there is a reference to it, and I thought it would be fun to kind of bring that to the podcast.
Right.
I almost called him Howard the Barbarian. Howard the Duck showed up. He was created by Steve Gerber, and the series is drawn by Steve Gerber and Frank Brunner.
Okay.
He was created for Steve Gerber's series Adventure into Fear, which was basically...
A perfect title for something about Howard the Duck.
Well, it was Man-Thing. He was in a Man-Thing story.
Oh.
Man-Thing, his whole thing was like different realities and all that stuff.
Right, because he can like he can teleport, or it's
he
like
exists in the nexus of realities. It's his swamp, basically.
Interesting.
Howard the Duck is from a place called Duck World. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's basically
a world of ducks.
You called it. It's exactly
Wow.
that. Howard the Duck, for those who may not know, who may not remember the 1986 film.
Good for you.
Well, there you go. He basically is Donald Duck. He's not a sailor. He's got like a business suit almost, and like a little bowler hat or little fedora almost thing. But he's an anthropomorphic, talking, very angry duck who smokes a cigar, and is from a place called Duck World. And oh, by the way, Jay, you probably don't know this. He is a master of a martial art called Quack Fu.
Of course he is.
You didn't know that.
Was he trained under Darkwing Duck? Was he his
Here's the thing. It
master?
feels like he does feel like he comes from like the Darkwing Duck launch pad sort of,
universe.
the DuckTales universe, basically, because that's everyone was ducks. And now he's in a world where he's the only duck, and he's kind of alone and lonely.
So he comes from Duck World, and he's trapped in the Marvel reality.
Can't go back.
Oh.
So Howard the Duck #1, 1976, Steve Gerber, Frank Brunner, opens with, and he had fought some weird guys. He lives in Cleveland, here. He's stuck there, basically, because where else do you go? And he
can't leave. You can't leave Cleveland,
He had
Ohio.
fought the Man Frog and the Hell Cow, were people he'd fought in Adventures into,
So like there were
in Adventure into Fear.
those were his main villains. So
Those
those were
were
like his Joker and Lex Luthor.
No, those are the adventures he'd gone on, basically.
Man Frog, my greatest foe.
But this issue opens with Howard contemplating suicide.
Okay.
So he's just like standing at the edge of a river, smoking a cigar, and thinking maybe he can just take a dip and clear his head. He doesn't necessarily have to kill himself, but the river is full of pollution, and he just laments that the world is. He says the world is foul, then he says, no, it's not foul enough. That's the problem. It's all humans. Yeah, exactly.
Or should I say quack, quack, quack? That's even worse.
Please
I'm
don't.
so sorry.
Please.
So sorry, everyone.
Well, here's the thing. We're talking about Howard the Duck,
Yeah.
guys. There's going to be some groaners.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Just how he's built.
He can't really go home. He kind of just wants to cash in his chips. Then he notices a tower on an island across the river. And by tower, I don't mean skyscraper. I mean it looks like like Rapunzel's tower, like just silhouette.
An old medieval type tower. And this is present day, right?
Present day in Cleveland, yeah. So he rows a log over
the
there.
Cleveland Towers. We don't.
Yeah, just on an island in the middle of the Cuyahoga.
Yeah, totally normal thing.
So he gets on a log and he rows over there, and he gets there. There's no door. He wants to climb to the top and throw himself off.
Because
that's his plan.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's part of his suicide.
His plan is to kill himself on the tower.
Why not? You could drown yourself, but why not throw yourself
Well, he's
off
a duck.
a medieval tower?
Can he drown himself?
I mean, he's thrown himself. I mean, I guess.
I mean, it's pollution. He could, but like the tower's cleaner,
Right.
But he gets there. There's no door, and also the surface is made of credit cards.
So I've come back to reality. I blacked out for a moment there. You said something about he's on an island. There's a tower, and it's covered in its grass.
No. I see. Actually, that's the funny thing is you didn't black out at all.
Oh,
the tower is made of credit cards.
the tower's made of credit cards.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
The island is normal. It's not grass. It's Cleveland. It's just dirt. But
Okay.
like
Sorry, Cleveland.
this comic is not kind to that city.
Wow.
But the tower is made of credit cards.
Okay.
So he scales it. He's determined. He's gonna throw himself off this thing.
I don't care that this is a weird tower made of credit cards. I'm killing myself.
So he
today.
climbs to the top and he comes to this window and there's this beautiful girl who's wearing like big blue makeup, like almost like David Bowie's
Tons of eyeshadow, or just
it's
like quite
covering
literally?
covering like half her face from like her forehead down to her eyes.
Weird.
And she's wearing basically a slave Leia outfit, like
Okay.
a few years early, but that's basically like that or bikini male from Adventure.
Sure.
It's that kind of thing. She's chained to a column. She begs for Howard to save her, so he turns to the reader and he says, "I realize this is strange, folks, but what the heck? It beats doing myself in. Did I not mention that Howard breaks the fourth wall?
I did not know that, but now I do.
Howard the Duck breaks the fourth wall. That's the thing that he does."
Okay.
So he goes to save her, because why not? And there's
Really?
this huge dog that starts, barking at him. And she points out, "Oh, there's this ceremonial gold axe embedded in the stump. Why don't you grab that?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's so easy."
I mean, that's where you'd keep your ceremonial gold
Well,
axes.
let's be fair. When you have a slave girl chained to a column and there's a giant dog and
And
we're
your
in a
tower's made of
tower,
credit cards.
none of this is really weird yet.
Yeah. Well, it's, very, very standard
So he
stuff.
tries to pull out the axe and he can't get it loose, and then it goes loose and he flies backwards. He cuts the rope to a chandelier, which crushes the dog.
Okay.
He's like, "All right, well, that was lucky." Then the dog turns into a man. A dead man.
A dead man.
And now he laments his poor fortune. He just wanted to kill himself, and now this other guy's dead.
He was totally cool with killing the dog, but not cool with killing
well,
the
he
man.
didn't even, he didn't even kill the dog. He was like, "Oh, poor creature. At least it didn't suffer." Ah, it's a dude now. What the
happened?
hell? And then this guy in a hood.
I like that this is the time where he starts to think that things are weird. He's like, well, that was really odd that dog turned into a man in this castle credit card place.
Then this guy in a hood and sideburns that are like straight out of Avatar: The Last Airbender, like Uncle Iroh sideburns, just shows up and knocks him out with magic.
Just like magic missile in the face.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, in the back of the head. Just
okay.
knocks him out from behind. Cut to New York City, where J. Jonah Jameson is stopping Peter Parker in the hall. And Peter's like, "Well, you're too late, JJ. I already cashed my check." And JJ's like, "Oh, very funny. No, I'm sending you to Cleveland. You're going to get some pictures of this new mutant menace out there. The duck that walks like a man." Or, I'm sorry, talks like a man. Ducks usually do walk. Relatively man-like.
Guys, let's talk about the budget of this newspaper, where they can fly their reporter all the way to Cleveland.
Oh,
to get
Spider-Man
some
gets
pictures.
flied all over the... Flied?
Flied.
He gets flown all over the place. He's been flown to Florida in issue 6. That's how he fought the lizard the first time.
The lizard showed up in Florida first?
Yeah. They fly...
Did not know that.
And they fly freelance photographer Peter Parker all over the country.
Wow.
So Howard wakes up and he's wearing like a fur loincloth, gold necklace, and like a Viking helmet, and he's got a sword. And he and the woman are prisoners, and she says that he is the man, this wizard, is Pro Rata, the mad financial wizard.
I have to say, for a story about Howard the Duck, I'm very much enjoying this so far.
Well, here's the thing. Howard the Duck has a cult following for a reason.
Yeah.
Even that movie to a degree, but that movie is not indicative of the quality of Howard the Duck necessarily.
The
or the
financial
tone.
wizard is fantastic.
Pro Rata. guys.
Pro
His name's
Rata.
Pro Rata.
Let's really nail this one home.
So the girl, and he's like, how did I get dressed like this? And the girl's like, I mean, I had to. He said I had to. And he's like, oh, it's so cute. She's embarrassed. That's the least of your problems. And he shows them the office of Pro Rata, soon to be the chief accountant of the universe.
Oh, man.
And it looks like a wizard's lair, stone steps and a bubbling cauldron with skulls embossed on it. In the middle is a table with basically an office chair and a calculator.
Perfect.
And not just like a calculator, but like one of those big, like,
when you pull the lever
ka-chunk.
and the paper just shoots out the top. Yeah.
And it's got bejeweled keys. But
Of course.
But one of them is missing. It's like, and it's big. It's like an exclamation point, or like a key. Like a big.
Yeah.
Like a big, like,
the button on the calculator.
but it's like the size of like a golden key that like Alice in Wonderland, that kind of thing.
That big.
It's big. And Pro Rata needs it by midnight. And I'm going to quote him. For at that hour, the stellar balance sheet comes into alignment. The astral audit may be taken, and I alone shall collect the cosmic dividend.
Oh man, there's so many things that are so right about what you just said.
Pro Rata was going to send through his hired barbarian through this dimensional portal to get the key. But, Howard broke every bone in his body and killed him. Right. So he's going to send the girl and Howard instead. So he literally kicks them through the portal.
I've got this anthropomorphic duck here. Might as well just send them through.
Yeah, kicks them through into this, like, twisted landscape of, like, basically it looks like roots instead of, like, a world. Like, it's just, like, this weird...
So wait, so the ground is just covered in, like, what you would imagine tree...
It looks like it's made
roots?
of, like, tree roots rather than, like... there's, like, a solid ground below
Yeah.
us. It's just, like, twisting paths and stuff. Almost
Weird.
like... Yeah, Doctor
Okay.
Strange almost. And there's this pyramid that they call the Citadel of Sai-Fur. Where the jeweled key will be.
That hurt me somewhere. I can't find out where, but it hurt me.
There's this warrior nearby, and he sees Howard and the girl, whose name we don't know at this point.
Now, is this warrior He-Man?
This warrior is He-Man-esque.
Awesome.
He's got some armor. He's also riding what basically looks like a zebra with a lizard's tail and the head of a vulture.
Perfect.
And he sees Howard and he thinks it's a newly hatched, what he calls a bandbird.
A bandabird?
Bahdbird.
Okay.
Yeah, bandbird. And we don't know what that is, but he thinks that it's like chasing this girl and he has to go save her and presumably get Nookie because this is not a knight. Right. And he rides forward and he's got his lance and Howard sees him and freaks out and he brings his sword down on the lance and it shatters and the warrior pitches forward, gets knocked out, and Howard and the girl steal them out and just ride it to the Citadel.
Screw that guy.
They come to
Just
this
ride off.
pyramid which is carved with massive numbers on the walls outside.
Of course.
And there's these two looming stone giants on either side of the doorway.
Okay, so they're frozen, or
They
they're...
look like they're sleeping, but they're
okay.
stone. They're just statues.
Okay.
But they're creepy.
We think, question
I mean,
mark.
they're obviously going to come to
They're
life.
obviously
That's
gonna do
obviously
something.
where we're going with this.
Yeah.
Howard and the girl go in and they find the gem key dangling over a pit full of spikes. And they don't know how, just like they don't know how to get it out. And Howard's like, oh, I wish I had a cigar so I could figure it out. So the girl reveals that she hid his last cigar in a scabbard. And then he's like, oh, perfect. And she takes his matches and she lights it and he's now I've got a plan.
So that was like his Popeye, like spinach, like ba-da-da-da-da,
That
ba-da-da-da-da.
is exactly the reference I was hoping you would make when I wrote this note. If you didn't, I
Perfect.
was
Mine
going
to
to.
mine. Mine to mine, Mike.
He holds out his helmet. He has her hold out his helmet under the key, dangling just over the pit, kind of precariously. And then he throws a cigar at the string that holds the key up, and it burns through the string, and the key falls and lands in the helmet. And the cigar unfortunately falls into the pit, and
Sad.
Howard's very sad.
Yeah. Laments it.
Very sad about the cigar. I assume he wanted it to be his last cigar.
I guess.
They leave, and the stone statues come to life. Basically, he calls it the burglar alarm. And they chase him. But they're out in the open now, and this giant pterodactyl thing attacks them. And Howard realizes, oh, that's what that guy thought I was. That's what's going on. And it smashes the statues, but, statues aren't edible. It very quickly turns
Yeah, so
and
it's like, this isn't food.
oh, well, then here we go. Let's attack those instead. So it's chasing the girl and Howard.
This is a crazy landscape. So it's got knights with lances, stone giants, number pyramids, and pterodactyls that eat stone giants, or think they want to eat
they
stone
smash it up, and Howard's like, well, I mean, that's not going to keep it busy for long when it finds out it's not edible. And they're like, oh, you're right, here it comes.
Oh,
and they start to vanish. They start to feel themselves fading away. We cut to Spider-Man. He's swinging around Cleveland looking
This
for...
is still a character in our story, remember, guys.
He's looking for some evidence of Howard. I don't know what he thinks he's going to see from the sky.
Yeah. Wait, what is he swinging on?
That's the funny thing. I don't know.
Nothing?
There's not much there.
Swing it on clouds.
There's like a helicopter at one point, and that comes out in just a minute because Pro Rata teleports Howard and Beverly. That's her name. She reveals her name is Beverly.
Oh, okay.
Beverly Switzler.
Okay.
And who, for those of you who saw the 1986 movie and remember it, first of all, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Also, it's the Leah Thompson character. And she's actually in
okay.
a lot of Howard the Duck stories. Most of them. She's kind of his constant companion.
Is this her first reveal?
Her first appearance.
Interesting.
Yeah. Basically, she told him her name because she thought she was about to die.
Right.
Then they get teleported back, and so they're standing there on this zebra vulture mount, and there's a giant pterodactyl thing in the tower with them because that thing got pulled in too. And as soon as it spreads its wings, the tower shatters, and Spider-Man's like, "Oh,
right, the tower made of credit cards that just had a pterodactyl explode out of it."
And so he hitches a ride on a helicopter to investigate. Pro Rata demands that they hand over the key, but Howard realizes, like, well, this guy's going to make himself a god, or at least he thinks he is.
Or he's going to do some weird accounting, evil
with
magic.
the cosmos.
Yeah.
So that's a good enough reason not for him to have it, if he's right. So he just throws it off the edge of the tower. And Spider-Man, like, comes up on the side. He's like, hey, did someone lose this? Holding the key. And you're like, oh, come on, man. He didn't know. He meant so well, guys. And then he's faced with what I assume is probably the strangest sight he had to that point in his career.
I mean, if we break down that scene, we have an accounting finance wizard. Mm-hmm. We have a pterodactyl. A pterodactyl-ish creature. We're in the ruins of a credit card tower.
We've got a woman in a slave Leia outfit about 9 years early.
And an anthropomorphic duck in a barbarian costume.
Yeah.
That is an insane sight. Even for a man who dresses like a giant spider.
In Cleveland.
We cannot forget this, guys.
Because the comic won't let us. There's this fight. I promise it is not still the strangest thing Spider-Man's ever seen, but it's high on the list, I'm sure.
I have to imagine.
There's this fight, and Pro Rata keeps, he almost shoots Spider-Man with magic, but Howard throws his sword at him. I don't mean that he, like, pulls the sword out of a scabbard and throws it. He throws the scabbarded sword.
Like, all sheathed together.
Yeah, into the guy's back.
So just like, this is the first thing I could think of.
Yeah, and it just hits him in the back, and the shot of magic goes wild, and it hits the river, which ignites.
It ignites the river?
The river just catches fire.
So Spider-Man really dodged a bullet with that one, or a magic fiery bullet.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
Spider-Man webs the giant bird thing's mouth shut, but then Pro Rata was going to shoot Spidey again. He says, he points out to Howard that he could kill him in an instant, but there's no budgetary logic in killing him, no way to justify the expenditure of magic. But Spider-Man's death will net me the gem key. I'll profit by destroying him.
Remember, kids, math is fun.
So Howard doesn't have anything else to throw at him, except for his helmet. Like, why doesn't he just throw the helmet?
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He throws himself. He throws himself at Pro Rata.
I love that he decided that the only thing he could throw was himself. That's awesome.
They topple over the edge, and he thinks, sure, why not? I was about to off myself anyway. Might as well use my life to stop this wacko.
That's awesome.
And they fall towards the fire, but Howard gets caught by a web, and he's pulled to safety. And then the comic proclaims, and in the caption says, and so comes to pass perhaps the weirdest moment in the Marvel Age of Comics, as Webfoot meets Webhead.
Wow, man. I wonder if someone had that line and was like, how do I make this happen? I know, wizards, accounting, pterodactyls, and credit cards. In Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. And Spider-Man. So Spider-Man, swings off to go deal with the bird thing that flew away. He hitches a ride on...
That's a problem now.
He hitches a ride on what he calls a convenient helicopter.
There's just a helicopter that's just like, da-da-da, just tours of Cleveland, I guess.
Same helicopter, same orange helicopter.
Just not a news helicopter, just a helicopter.
And also, no one talks about this. Again, he totally let that wizard die.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
why
he pulls up Howard.
Consistent things of just heroes, just Spider-Man letting people just die
regularly and consistently.
Also, there is something very dark, but also slightly funny that Howard the Duck's first, heroic moment is trying to commit suicide and managing to kill an evil wizard by it.
Yeah.
That's his superpower, is being really glass half empty.
Exactly. But, Beverly says, well, Howard, the danger's past. We're both alive and well. What will you do now? Where will you go? And Howard says, I don't know, but I could sure use a good cigar. And this is said as we're panning out away from the tower, which is, by the way, still on an island in the middle of a flaming river, and the tower is made of plastic. Like, what is... There's no doors.
Why was this built is never explained.
Spider-Man just left them there on a tower made of plastic credit cards that they can't presumably get out of, and they don't have a way off of this flaming river.
Spider-Man just, at this point at his run, did he not have any kind of conscience or care for other...
Why do we think that he doesn't kill people?
I think he does.
Why did we retcon this, that he's not a murderer?
We need to compile some evidence. There's a case here to bring against Spider-Man.
Then the bottom of the page says, next, the star-spawned threat of the deadly space turnip. Be here.
The space turnip?
The deadly space turnip.
Look, at this point, with pro rata and pterodactyls and credit card islands in Cleveland, deadly space turnip. Come on, guys.
Howard ran for president in issue 8.
What?
He ran for president in the 1976 election.
Did he win?
He got a legitimate number of real-world write-in votes.
No, wait, really? Like, people wrote in and
people wrote in
Howard
the Duck
to be the president.
Yeah.
Oh my god. You know what's funny about that is I actually believe you have a certain number of signatures for something, they actually have to bring it before the Senate. Not that would be a real legit thing.
Here's the thing. He is not, in fact, a naturally born citizen of the United States of America.
That's true. He is from a place called Duck World.
Fictional. B from Duck World. And C, duck.
And C, he is a duck.
I don't know if he's over the age of 35 either. I don't know.
That's probably the most important part that was keeping it from happening.
I'm sure. But here, like...
I take my legal stuff very seriously, Mike.
It's a very strange comic. It's very existential, the whole comic, and it's very satirical. Two things that the writer of the film decided were not important. There's actually a quote on the Wikipedia page. First thing on the movie is or on the character of Howard the Duck. It says that the screenwriter did not agree that Howard the Duck should be an existential character.
Sad.
So it's in good hands in that case.
Yeah, at that point they started off on the right foot. Question.
You're trying to find the pun there.
I was on a webbed foot. I just couldn't make it happen.
Oh well.
And then we're probably all the better for it.
It's true.
All right, that was our main segment about Howard the Duck. Now we're on to our game segment for the episode, Super-Mundane. All right, this is Super-Mundane. This is the game where basically I put out a super-mundane activity that a normal person would do, and Mike and I have to decide who would be the best hero or basically person in comics to be the best at this super-mundane activity, and also now who would be the worst.
Yep.
So here we go. For our super-mundane, it is who would be the best at running a camping trip.
Running a camping trip.
There's no Sasquatch superheroes, are there, that I don't know about?
Yeah, Sasquatch.
What about Squirrel Girl?
Squirrel Girl is a really good answer,
Squirrel Girl would actually be really fun.
So hang on, there's a few options. Let's actually talk about Sasquatch while we're on the subject. Sasquatch is a member of Alpha Flight. Alpha Flight is the Canadian super
Alpha Flight.
team.
There's oh my god, yes, you're right.
Yeah, you guys see it dawning in your face. He's the Beast, basically. He's Beast of that team, except he can turn into a Sasquatch or a human.
Which is probably the better version of Beast power.
It's true. It really
Poor
is.
Beast.
Any character like Beast, actually, would be a good option. Beast is interesting because he's very smart. Mm-hmm. He's very savvy, as is Sasquatch. I'm lumping them together because they're both... kind
of fit into that mold.
Exactly. They'd be able to take you on an educational trip. They're also very... They're nature men is the nicest way to put it. They are monsters.
Basically, they're nature men.
They're nature monsters. They're big hairy beasts, Sasquatches that can, fair play.
Yeah, it is.
They would have a great obstacle course. They'd show you how to hide the food from the bears and sleeping downwind. They'd be great at all that
fight the
stuff.
Bears.
They would end up fighting a bear.
Yeah.
They would end up fighting a hunter.
Yeah,
there'd be some hunter there.
Nature in because of their primal, that kind of animal versus animal kind
they
of
might.
nature.
They
which
could.
is not necessarily the best thing you want.
Well, I mean, it would be. Yeah, it's true. But it would also keep away predators, probably. I'm sure Sasquatch
maybe.
is imposing.
Are they just going to go around and pee on the different trees?
You may not be able to stop them from doing that anyway.
That's very true.
You're camping,
that anyway.
Jay. That's kind of what you have to do.
That's probably what you have to do anyway, let's be fair.
But you brought up Squirrel Girl.
Yes.
Which is an interesting way to go with it.
Because, you can communicate. Look, your foraging is going to be taken care of.
Yes.
You got the squirrels working for you.
Yeah. Squirrel Girl is a formidable character in the Marvel Universe. She beat Doctor Doom. with squirrels.
What?
Did you not know that?
I did not know that Squirrel Girl beat Dr. Doom.
She fought Dr. Doom once and just overwhelmed him with squirrels.
How many squirrels are we talking here? Like 10, 200, thousands?
Well, not thousands.
Okay.
Scores.
Scores of squirrels.
Scores of squirrels.
Scores of squirrels.
A swarm of squirrels. A squirrel swarm. A squirrel swarm, if you will.
Okay.
That's
awesome.
She took down Dr. Doom that way.
Just overwhelming him with just tons of squirrels?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. And look, not everybody can say that they've done that.
Exactly. For sure.
Especially someone called Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, she'd solve the foraging issues. She communicates with the squirrels, so she'd know kind of the lay of the land.
Yeah.
And look, who would not have a pretty kick-ass time hanging out with a bunch of squirrels?
Yeah, for sure.
mean-
They be tame. That's the worst thing about squirrels is that they get out of hand.
Yeah, and let's be honest. I mean, at least for me, I've always wanted to kind of pet a squirrel, very much like you would like a cat or a dog.
Sure.
And like you just never can, because those things are going nuts.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that, but after the fact, I said it.
They're going nuts.
Yes,
I just
know.
figured it out.
I didn't think of it that way, but now, again, I'm sorry.
This episode, I feel like, is characterized by a grand number of inadvertent puns.
Howard the Duck has spread far and wide in this episode.
It's true. He really has.
Okay, so Squirrel Girl is probably, I think, the best answer for this.
Yeah, I mean, the Beast or Sasquatch are really good answers as well. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Squirrel Girl is going to be the most fun.
Yeah. She's also, I don't know her character very well. Is she very, like, kind of fun with kids? And
you don't call yourself Squirrel Girl and then go brood on rooftops. No. She was the babysitter for Luke Cage and Jessica Jones in New Avengers.
I did know that.
Yeah, so she's like a fun character, and she's capable because she held her own during Fear itself. When that comic was happening and, like, Nazi robots burst down the door of Avengers Mansion, I think Daredevil was there too, but she basically had to fend off Nazi robots. Or Nazi mech suits, really.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she's capable. She can do her thing. She's been... I think she's one of the many teenage girls trained by Wolverine.
Really?
I'm not sure about that, but she is capable.
And look, that even adds to that. I mean, Wolverine would also be great for just camping, and if you're trained by Wolverine and you can communicate with squirrels in the wild, I think that's a great...
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, okay, so we've got... Okay, so Squirrel Girl is our answer for who would be best at camping.
Yes.
Who's going to be our worst at camping? I haven't thought.
Okay, share with me your thought.
I mean, the first thought is probably Iron Man. Just because
I'm thinking of something in that ballpark
the
as well.
wilderness. I mean, he just would hate it.
Because I'm going through the kind of the science-y guys. Mm-hmm. Bruce Banner has spent many, many a time lying low, in log cabins, in parks, finding places where he can hide. He's going to be a pretty decent guy to camp with.
Yeah.
He may not be the best during, like, mosquito season, because that guy's going to get irate.
He's a little pissed off.
Look, man, when that guy runs into poison ivy, man, and he gets on him, that dude's going bug nuts.
Yeah.
But, by and large, he'll be okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Fantastic or Iron Man are not great options. Iron Man, I feel like, is worse because he is such a creature of convenience. Like in such a profound way.
Pyro's not going to be a good fit because he's a man that sets things on fire.
Also true.
Because he is surrounded by burnable things.
Human Torch, same category.
Human Torch would also be terrible.
He's also terrible because he's a city boy.
Yeah.
That boy is straight up.
Right, and he's a show-off. I mean, the guy's going to want to throw those... He throws those fire powers around whenever he possibly can.
Really casually.
Yeah, Human Torch would not be good at all. I mean, that's definitely a forest fire.
But I can't get out of my head because Iron Man also could start a forest fire. But here's the other thing about Iron Man: we've seen the movies. We know that he can salvage things. He can do it on his own. Human Torch probably a better, worse answer.
And he's used to living in the most high tech, clean
skyscraper
building
in the
ever.
world.
I mean, the Baxter Building is quite literally the opposite of a forest.
Yeah, like Tony Stark, you'd hate to bring camping with you. Like he'd be the worst guy to go camping with because he's just like, this is awful. I hate this. But if he's planning the camping trip, he's gonna bring the supplies you need.
You might have
Human Torch. If he's planning a camping trip, which was the premise, you're gonna get lost. You're not going to end up in the campgrounds. There's no way you don't fight the mole man.
Yeah.
And there's going to be at least one, if not 3 forest fires. Exactly. He's not the guy you want.
That's true. The Human Torch would be the worst to bring on a camping trip.
Comparable with Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's always the wrong answer.
Always the wrong answer, always.
Yeah. Also a city boy.
But
he would be decent at camping. He could make hammocks at least.
Yeah, of course.
With his webs.
Spider-Man would not be that bad.
No. In comparison to Human Torch, who just can't. I can't see that guy getting away from his his television and his iPod
Yeah,
and his
he would lose
DS.
it. He'd be in the car, he'd be in the Fantastic car, just like on there, just playing something.
Yeah.
But, all right. So, I guess for this episode, Super-Mundane, we've got Squirrel Girl is our best answer.
Yes.
And we've got our worst is gotta be Human Torch.
Yeah, not the guy you want.
No, definitely not. All right. Well, that was episode 9 of Because Comics. We'll be posting a new episode every other week. If you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. That's arc with a C. Of course, you can email us any questions at becausecomics@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter and Instagram at because_comics. Please leave us some reviews, shoot us some emails. We love to hear back from you guys. And be sure to check out more content from our comic boy wonder, Mike Christensen, at supergeekmike.com. Thanks for listening, and remember,
A bird in the hand is worth 2 birds killed with 1 stone.
I guess that's true, yes. Now, are these birds, are these like ninja birds, dangerous birds, or what are we looking
They're
at?
angry birds.
They're angry birds.
Yeah.
So they've been smashing stuff up,
They reek of bacon.
causing a reeking of bacon.
Because there's pigs
Oh,
and
I
angry
get it.
birds.
Oh, I get it, Mike. We've gone too far. Just cut it. Because comics.